Where do you start? Anytime you get into a new field, whether it's computers or any other field, you've got to start with some basic vocabulary, your network terminology. That's where we always begin. Give you those words, and then we're going to start putting those terms and the new vocabulary to use in building up towards what you need to know as a complete picture. So we're going to start with some network terminology, and from there we're going to use that to build up some general concepts of network theory to begin our studies. You all set? Because I know I am. Let's take a look at it. First and foremost, what in the world is a computer network? Well, you've heard the word networks before, and you've heard computers, but the key here is the computers that you have, like the computer you're watching this on right now, your laptops, your desktop machines, all these different machines, they want to communicate with each other. And the mechanism that's being used to communicate and share information between computers, that becomes a computer network. That's all it is. Sometimes they're connected with physical cables, sometimes they're wireless. So keep it simple. A computer network is what's used to allow computers to communicate and share resources. What comprises the network itself? Well, there's four major things out there. You want to know what those four items are. Well, there's devices to begin with. A device is some sort of physical hardware that's out there. The computers themselves, the servers, the printers, even a fax machine, the networking equipment itself, like switches and routers. We'll be looking at some of these things later on. So if you don't know all of these terms, the key here is we're talking some physical device that's out on the network, something you can hold or pick up. Okay. We have the physical media itself. Now the physical media, that's going to be a network cable, a cable that's connecting this box to this box over here. So you got two boxes, you'll string a cable between them. That cable is going to become the physical media itself. You also have a network adapter. Now, normally when you have a computer, especially years ago when I first started in the industry, the computers didn't have a way to connect to that physical media. You actually had to insert a network adapter. And this would be inserted, and then you would take the physical media and plug it into a outlet hole on that network adapter. And what that would do is interface between the physical media and the computer itself. Pretty simple stuff. Nowadays with laptops and other computers, oftentimes they're built right in, these network adapters, so you don't need to insert anything. They're already inserted right at the factory when you first have them built. Finally, of course, let's not forget the software side of things. A network operating system, that is the software that's going to actually allow data to move between the different devices along the physical media. They're going to control the traffic coming in, control the traffic going out, who's allowed to send at what time, those sorts of things. Variety of different network operating systems out there. You're likely using one right now. Microsoft Windows would be an example. The Apple Mac OS is another example. There's Linux out there, plenty of other network operating systems. Essentially, it's any set of base operating system, that software that is allowing you to network on things. Let's add in another term, nodes. A node, which is also sometimes referred to as a workstation or a client, is any device that can connect to a network and generate, process, or transfer data. You can see some different examples there. Desktop computers can be a node. A server can be a node. That switch in the middle, which is a network device that connects different computers together, different servers connect together, they can be a node as well. But there's another fine point here, as you can see on the diagram. You have endpoints. That would be places that are originating or being the destination of a signal. You also have redistribution point. The switch is a redistribution point. Yes, it can process data, but it's not usually the the endpoint of the data. You might have data going from your personal computer heading to a server, and data coming from the server heading back to the personal computer. The switch is in the middle, and it's processing the data and looking at it, but it's not the final destination. So a couple of extra terms on that slide for you. Connecting all of this is the network backbone. The network backbone is simply a very high-speed portion of the network that carries the majority of your network traffic and interconnects everything else. Think about it just like the backbone of your body, the spine of your body. All your ribs are connected to your spine, your neck bones, your hip bones, all connected. And it's the spine that's kind of tying everything together. Same thing with a network. It's that backbone that is tying everything else together. That's all you need to really know about it for the moment. The four types of backbones describe kind of the design of it. I mean, human backbone is always a human backbone. It's always just up and down straight along our back. But a computer backbone, they could be serial. That's a number of cables going into different switches in a row. And it's kind of long, one big long line, and it's not really designed for enterprise-wide use. You're looking at that in a smaller office, small company building. You have a distributed or what's called a hierarchical design. That's going to be multiple switches connected to other switches and hubs. A little easier to grow that way. Coming off of just one long chain of switches, you'll have other switches and routers kind of growing organically the network. We have a collapsed network where we use a router or switch as a center point for several subnetworks. We also could have a parallel backbone. It's similar to the collapsed backbone, but it also, in addition to having a centralized switch or a router, augments the dependent switches with multiple cable connections. So if something was to fail, you've got not just one cable there, but multiple cables running in parallel. So there's always a path for data to follow, even if one cable, one of the physical medias were to break on you. Now we also have servers. I mentioned servers at this point. You've probably heard of the word servers. Think of a server from a Network Plus point of view as simply a computer that shares resources and responds to requests for those same resources from other computers and devices out on the network. There's many of these. They could be dedicated email servers. They could be file servers that you just put files on there, store them and retrieve them. Database servers. They can be general purpose servers that do several of those types of things. A couple of other mentions. You've got different software out there. Let's mention Microsoft Windows. Windows Server 2008 is the latest release as of this point of Microsoft's server-oriented Windows operating system. You also have SUSE Linux's enterprise server. If you're running the Linux operating system, that would be a version of Linux that would give you a server. And those softwares are just more orientated towards running on a box that's going to be getting lots of requests and sending response to those requests back to you. The clients themselves, well, there's servers and there's clients. Okay, sometimes it gets a little mixed up as to which is which, but who are we usually? If we're sitting on our laptops, we're usually a client. We're usually not as often the server. A client would be a network computer that utilizes the resources of other network computers, such as our servers, or it could even be other clients. Now, when you think client computer, think something like the laptop you may be sitting at right now. It's got its own processor, its own memory, its own storage like hard drives or solid state drives. It's doing its work internally in its box. Okay, that's as opposed to some of the other things we'll be seeing in a minute. But remember, even though it's doing its own processing, it can still make requests of other boxes like the server. So I may make a request of an email server and the traffic goes out from my box, the request goes to the email server The email server sees that request, responds, and sends back a copy of the email that was sent to me, and it's stored on my computer. And that's how a client would work. So we're good so far. Let's take a look at a couple other terms next for some other specific types of devices we see on our network.